Let's go over how you can create a form in Google. If you are in the new drive, you will have the new button, and if you're in the classic drive, this button will say create. Whichever button you have, click on it and pick Google Forms. If you don't see it right away in the menu, go to more and you will see Google Forms. When you click on Google Forms, your form is untitled just like the document. So you can click on the title and title your form. I'm going to call it Practice Form. There are a few things that when you are in a Google Apps for Education domain that you have choices. For example, by default, it will require Adams 12, or if you're in some other educational domain, log in to view this form. If you don't want people to have to log into this form, like for example, you're sending it out to parents and they're not part of your school domain, make sure you uncheck. And it even says this. This will make your form accessible outside of Adams 12. Are you sure you wish to proceed? And click OK. So remember, if you're sending the form out and you're creating it in a Google Apps for Education environment, you're going to have to uncheck this box. But if it is just within your school's domain, you might want to require them to log in. And if you don't want to put like a name question, you can automatically collect their respondent's username so you know who submitted the data. This is not an option if you are not requiring people outside of Adams 12. So yes, you can check it off, but notice it checks this off box as well. So if you're making a form for parents or people outside of your domain and you want to collect names, you're going to have it as a question. You can show the progress bar at the bottom of the form, so this will show people how far along they are. You can check off only allow one response per person, which means people can't submit multiple responses. And you can also shuffle the question order. So if you're making a test for students, you probably want only one response per question checked off, and you might want to shuffle the question order as well. Notice when I put the name of practice form up here, it put the title in here. So let's go through the questions, the different questions types, and how you can create questions. So the question types you have are multiple choice, text, paragraph text, checkbox, choose from list, scale, grid, date, and time. When you're creating a question, you have the question title, which is basically the question. Help text, so any information you want to explain to them about a question, and then the question type. The go-to page based on answer has to do with branching forms, which is covered in another tutorial. The other thing is a required question. If you want the people to have to answer the question, you can check off the required question box. Under advanced settings are the shuffle option order as well down here to shuffle the questions. Over in this box is if you want to delete the question, if you want to duplicate the question, or if you want to edit the question. So let's start with a multiple choice question. What is your favorite color? Question mark. You can put in a help text, multiple choice. You can put in your color, blue, green, purple. And then you can add other, which means people would be able to pick whatever answer that they want for other. If you want to get rid of answers, you hit the X and it gets rid of the answers. So other means they can pick another option. If you want to make it required, you click required, and when you're done with the question, it's done and not save. And then there's your question. If you wanted to go to edit the question, you could click on the pencil and edit the question. When you're ready to add another question, you go to Add Item. The questions are under Basic and also Advanced. We'll talk about layout later. So if I wanted to add a straight up text question, I could click on Text. And for example, if I wasn't collecting names, if it was out of your Google Apps for Education domain and it was something that going to people that weren't part of the domain and you weren't collecting their names, you'd want to put name. Make it required. Done. Notice when you make something required, it has the little asterisk next to it. If you have information that you want someone to type in and it's larger than just fits in a little box here, you'd use a paragraph text. How do you feel about today's lesson? More open-ended, they could put their longer answer in here, make it required, done. Next type of question, we already went over multiple choice. Next type of question is check boxes. So you could say, please check off any type of food you want at the party. And you can put in whatever you want. Pizza, popcorn, fruit. We know everybody wants fruit at the party. Chocolate. And you could add another other if you want people to put their answers. And I click on Done, and people can check off as many answers. So with the check off, you don't have to have just one answer like with multiple choice. Choose from a list is similar to multiple choice, as where you can make a list of things to choose from. What time do you want to volunteer? Now with choose from a list, they just have one choice. So this is more like just a different version of a multiple choice question. If you want to make it required, here's required. You hit done. What time do you volunteer? Sorry, I can't show you what it looks like until I show you the live form, but everything would come down in the list and they could choose one thing from the list. Add another item, they have scales. So this gets a little more complicated. It's a scale, it's kind of like asking people's opinion, like when you have a question like a polling, like how was our customer service? Was our customer service good? Strongly disagree? Agree? Do you see what I'm saying? So like, how was your dining experience? And thank goodness for spell check. And so we're using a scale. So you can do 1 to 5, or you could do 1 to 10. Those are your choices. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being lousy, 10 being super excellent, done. And see, they'll have the choice of putting in what you want. That is a scale. Grid can be the most confusing, okay? Grid, it's like you're asking for an answer on multiple items, which can be useful. So, for example, you are creating an all-day professional development experience, and you want to know how useful did you find today's activities? Once again, yay for spell check. So the rows are what are going to be the different days of activities. So row 1 could be curriculum explanation. Maybe that was one section. Row 2 was text dependent questions. So that was another section of it. Number 3 could be reviewing last year's information. for, work time with your grade level. That would be the rows. Then the columns are what you want them to be from. So for example, not useful, sort of useful, very useful, and then done. Now you'll see what it looks like. So you get what I'm saying? These were the things in the rows, these were the things in the columns. And you can have as many rows as you want and as many columns as you want. So you can keep adding to them. Remember, if you want to require one response per row, which means they can't put in 2 different responses, you're going to want to do this. Because otherwise, they could put in more than one response, which is not going to help you when you're trying to gather information. The date one is basically a question about just asking, for the date, like when are you available, or were you born? So when you just want some information that is a date, and if you want to get specific about time, so when can you come help volunteer, you want date and time, but I just want date, and then they can pick the month and the date, which, like I said, I can't show you until you're in live form. So you can see what the question looks like, but you can't exactly use the question until you view live form, which I'll show you in a minute. And then there's the time question, so if you had a straight up time question. So if you want to see what your document's going to look like, you can click on View Live Form. And this will show you what your document will look like to the people that are going to receive it. Okay, a couple other things. When you create a form, how do you get it to people? Okay, this is not the form you want to send them. So I know a lot of people are used to, oh, well, I'll send people this link. No, this would give them the link to this form. And they wouldn't be able to get to it unless they were a collaborator. So you can have people share forms. Notice there's no share button here. You have to go to File and add collaborators. And notice the window looks like similar to sharing windows. So you can add people if you want them to be able to edit this form. You don't add people here and share people here who you want to take the form. This is just for people you want to be able to edit the form. You can do one of a few things to have people get the form. You can click on Send Form, and then you can put in the email addresses in here. So if it's not that many people, or if it's a group and you specifically have everyone's email address, you can use Send Form. The other way is the link to share. So in other words, it's this link here that you're going to send. It's not the link of the practice form. Okay, you need the link of the live form. So if you want a shorter URL, which means something that's not as long and scary as this, you can do short URL, and it's shortening it. And when it's done shortening, you can send this to people. So anyone, so if you are posting it to a website or you're sharing it somehow where you don't have everybody's email addresses, this is the way. You need the link. You also could embed the form into your website. So if you want to actually have the form appear, here's the embed code. And if you don't know what I'm talking about embedding, don't worry about it, because if you know what embedding is, you'll know what to do with the code. If you don't know what embedding is, you don't have to know what embedding is. The other thing is viewing responses. You can view the responses in a spreadsheet form, and Google will actually, when you make a form, it actually will make 2 forms. I mean 2 documents. The practice form, and a notice it says practice form responses. So if you want to go back in and edit or change and look, you look for the practice form. That takes you to your form, or the practice form responses takes you to the responses. So just to review that, you are not sending people this link. This is the editable version of the form. If you want people to collaborate and work on this form with you, you can add collaborators. There is no share button. If you want to send the form out to people to reply to it, you do send form and either send it in here with emails, so I could email this to someone. And if you're going to email, you can include the form in the email. By default, it will include a copy of the form in the email. Now, it won't have theme formatting. It'll just be kind of plain, but you can include that. And hit send. If you do it this way, it does allow you to put in a message as well. So if you have email addresses, it's great. You can give them directions, fine. Or remember, this is the link, or you make a shortened link, and that's the one you send out, post, so on and so forth. You also can get this link, but not a short version, from going to View Live Form. This is the link to viewing the live form. And my computer's a little slow today. Eventually the form will come up. Now, you can make your form pretty. There is themes. There are themes. Right now this is just the plain default theme. You can click on Change Theme, and there is another tutorial that goes with how you can alter your theme. So please review that if you want to learn how to make your form more attractive.